What if retaining the right talent, as well as the most trusted talent, could help you better execute your designed legacy? I'd like to welcome Yvan Demosthenes, who is the CEO of HamiltonDemo, this lovely morning. HamiltonDemo sources game-changing talent, qualified, proven professionals who will propel your business and ultimately your legacy forward. So therefore, hire with confidence. It's a boutique firm with a national reach across the United States, where HamiltonDemo has the scale to ensure your needs in comprehensively meeting the flexibility that your firm needs when tailoring an approach for your search's unique hiring challenges. Welcome, Yvan.
Angelina, great to be with you today.
Yes. So in our preamble, before I press the record button, we were talking about how much, especially affluent families and family businesses, would like to hire for talent. So the problem, many times, I'm going to start with the problem, is hiring both qualified as well as trusted people to add to one's team. How do you handle the trust question?
So that's great for us because we really value our clients in being a trusted advisor. And so part of being a trusted advisor is to identify those candidates that they can trust as well. So quite frankly, I wish it was a magic pill that we use or something that I could share, but it really is a process where our intuition allows us to build rapport with our candidates, and we kind of get deep. By the time we're delivering candidates to our clients, we know how many kids they have. We know if they love pets, if they're dog lovers or cat lovers. What drove them and inspired them and motivated them in the industry, in the space that they're in. And once we gain that information, then we have a little bit of intuition in being able to trust that they are going to follow through and be trustworthy to our clients. Now, in saying that, I'll be honest, we don't bat 1,000, right? We don't bat 1,000 at all. Unfortunately, things happen. But I will say we bat pretty high. I'd say probably batting around 675 or 700. So.
Yes. Well, I was going to make the joke, you're profiling like an intelligence officer. But it's
That's
good.
Funny.
You're breaking the ice and getting to know the person that's, below what's on paper. Because,
Yes.
I could make the joke that sometimes professional executive search firms, it's almost like matchmaking.
Yes. And, I personally feel that that's the little bit of value that we're bringing to our clients, because in today's day and age, automation is such a big thing. You lose that, whether you're the multi-thousand employee company or if you're a 5 to 10 employee company, right? You're using all these resources and tools and relying on the automation where you don't gain that rapport. And quite frankly, you may have somebody who you interview and is a different person the day that they start their first day, right? So we try to provide that value and give that insight and information and provide that data to our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I think who somebody is on paper can be very different than who they are in person. And sometimes they could be completely two different things. Like somebody that looks, not great on paper, could be the one that could be like the go-to guy or the go-to gal that can get it done. And yet somebody who looks marvelous on paper might not have the people skills to know how to finesse a project. What's that smile on your face?
Yeah, well, I just love what you're saying, because truly AI has evolved tremendously in the past few years, and matching capabilities and technology, but I still have not used an applicant tracking system or seen one that can touch and feel a candidate, right? And until then, I think gaining that rapport is king. And as a matter of fact, even with that automation, my team and I, we insist on the personal contact. As we have candidates from time to time that would like us to text or communicate electronically. We don't do that.
Are you
We
old school? You
do.
pick up the phone?
Oh yeah, we're some days we're doing over 100 dials, Angelina. Easily, I'd say at least 2 or 3 times a week. Amongst our team members, we're doing over 100 dials, and we're talking to people 9 to 5, before work, after work, till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And depending on the role, sometimes we call on weekends, especially if it's a role that there's weekend hours. We don't mind reaching out to the candidates, and it's very telling, because if someone's going to be kind of cranky on the phone on a Saturday because you called them, then it tells you, hey, maybe this role is not conducive to their lifestyle and what they're doing, because they're going to have to work Saturdays, and we don't want a cranky person being presented and packaged to our clients. So yeah, 100%, we're always calling.
Yeah, or maybe it's just their heart's not in it if you call and they're snippy on a Saturday.
Well, I think we do a lot of coaching in what we do, and quite frankly, when I think about it, we have an education system that's great, but there's not enough. There's not a lot of teaching of interviewing skills, right? Those people that interview well are usually the ones that are interviewing all the time, right? So things like that, demeanor, cordialness, especially at the first engagement, it tells you a lot in how you're going to be able to work with someone.
Yes, it's also interesting because there was an article, and I'm kind of going to jump away from my list of questions for a moment, but there was an article a couple of years ago, and it was about students in Texas, and their parents had the money to put them into an expensive charter school because they would buy a residence in that geographic area. And then all the other students and the children were upset because then it blocked their ability to be admitted. And the reason I'm bringing up the story is it was like a charter school, but specific to artists and musicians. And yet there's still the anomaly of the student that is so good, whether it's music and art, that they don't even need to go to that school. And so the reason I'm sharing the story with you is because sometimes somebody can go to the right schools and look right on paper, and yet, like what you referred to about their demeanor and how they present themselves and how they relate, it might not be covered in that school.
Yeah. And we live in a great world too, because there's a place for those people too, right? There's corporate and company cultures where they'll fit in great. We just need to match that up and understand that culture. We actually, my team and I, we were just in a conversation with some other recruiters from another organization that was providing us a little bit of training. And we talked about that. When you are recruiting, the better that you understand the candidate and that candidate experience, the better that you can match to that client's culture, to that client's environment, and how best to match them to, right? So if you've got a tense environment and people are tense and a little maybe that's a great place for them to be, right? If you go somewhere where they like to play ping pong and they value independence, then you want to bring somebody who's going to enjoy that flow, that freedom. So yeah, I think there's a place for everybody.
Yes. So let's talk about executive presence for a moment, because I know one of the things you said on prior podcasts is how somebody answers the phone matters, and also just to perhaps not write that opinion on social media. So let me bring up social media for a moment. Okay. So I could see it as social engineering compared to the facts and the qualifications. In other words, just because somebody writes something on social media and they say something about this politician or that politician, or they've got an opinion about something, they could be qualified for the job, but now it could create bias. What say you?
So actually, I agree with a lot of the coaching that these executives give, that stay off social media. You've got a persona out there, but you don't need to put your opinions. You don't need to, interact on a low level, medium level, etc. As a matter of fact, I would say create your persona and then leave it there so people can find you. They know about you and they know what you do. But other than that, if I'm speaking to an executive, I would strongly recommend not doing anything. So if they insist on doing things and being active on social media, I advise, especially when they are in a job search, I advise have extreme focus, high level extreme focus, where they're focusing in on their industry and the positionality of where they want to be within that industry, and only respond and interact to those to whatever posts or social media feeds that are within that context.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say you have a candidate and they don't do that. What's your workaround? Or is there none?
Well,
Is it just let them?
well, I strongly feel that everybody deserves a chance, right?
Okay.
So, just like I said, the way that someone answers the phone and their demeanor, etc., I'll say something, I'll give them one chance. So I believe everybody deserves a chance. But I think when you're in a position to coach someone, especially when they're seeking you out to guide and to help them, quite frankly, if they don't want to listen, then I don't have time to spend with them. So I'm pretty firm on that. But yeah, I'll give everybody one chance and explain to them, and kind of perhaps even refer to other sources where they can read and maybe ask others to reinforce what I'm talking about.
Okay. So let's say you've got an employer and they're going to go to google.com and look for something that's salacious. So would you back the candidate, or would you just say, well, we're selective and based on what I've seen off of google.com?
Yeah. So
because let's say somebody's got a crazy ex-spouse.
Yeah.
And they didn't pay their child support or something. And it happens to executives. It just doesn't happen to like the working class.
Yeah. So are you asking if the client / company is doing that Google search, or
Sure. They said, Ivan, we looked on the internet and it said that Tommy Brown or Bobby Brown, whatever, I'm making up the name, it said some salacious, and we got some dirt on this person. Even though they graduated with a 4.0 and the best schools and volunteer service.
Yeah. So that I will say that's happened in certain situations once or twice. It hasn't happened a lot, but it has happened. And quite actually our process in knowing and building rapport, we kind of, the times that it's happened, we've already heard and discussed that with the candidate. So we were able to respond immediately to the client. And more often than not, if something comes up that will come to the surface, we let our clients know first. So if it comes up that there's a spouse who is a bit unhappy and maybe sharing some things that may or may not be true, we'll share that with our clients, because inevitably they're going to do a background check and they're going to find that out anyway. So for us, the times that has happened, we already knew, and we were able to respond immediately and frame it accordingly. So it didn't end up hurting us or the candidate.
Okay, okay, just checking. I'm aware that many times with young adults, cyberbullying is quite common, and it would be unfortunate if somebody got thrown under the bus for something. And now here
Yeah.
they come to your office, and
Yeah.
it's built them some character.
Yeah. I will say this. This has not happened. Um, it hasn't happened lately, and it hasn't happened a lot with higher level roles. But from time to time, we've helped with hourly roles and entry level roles. And my goodness, the Facebook check is can be it can be painful. So they present themselves well and everything else, and then you see their Facebook page, and it's got pictures that are quite frankly offensive, or you know, they're pictures of partying and not a good light and stuff like that. So again, those are some of the coach things that we do with the coaching,
Okay,
where we say, hey, turn it off. If you don't want to take it down, then just turn it off for now.
okay.
And before we move forward, we'll confirm that your social media is turned off, or you've updated your pics.
So it's interesting. So about 80% of the listeners are under age 40 around the world. Obviously English
Yeah,
speaking, because they're tuning in and I'm speaking English right now.
awesome.
And so I think a lot of the times they don't realize some of those unspoken protocols.
Yeah. So I will say that if you're younger, they're and up to the entry level professional roles, you're probably going to have somebody uh, look at your profile on Facebook. And I say Facebook for a reason, not Instagram or anything else, because usually the recruiters are a little bit older. They're like my age, right? So we hear, and they have been sampling and searching on Facebook. So that's kind of king right now. Will it evolve? Yes, I imagine it will start to evolve a little bit, where they look on different platforms, TikTok, Instagram, etc. But definitely Facebook is more of the go-to for now.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah, yeah. That's I think that's interesting about your audience too, because Angelina, I'll be 53 on
Okay.
Monday,
Okay.
right? And the subcultures of all the generations that we have in this country, I've really started exploring a lot lately, and it's a bit fascinating. So literally with my kids, and then because I've got a 22-year-old, a 13-year-old, and an 11-year-old. Um, my father's still alive, so he'll be 82 later this year. So I've been aware lately of the generational subcultures that are present, not just in my life, but in the country. And it's been fascinating to explore that.
And when you mean subcultures, you're referring to what's acceptable for, let's say, your 22-year-old child?
No, so when I say subcultures, like baby boomers, Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Y. Uh, so
Yes. Okay. Okay. I guess being aware of then what influences each of that strata.
yes, exactly, because you know these different generation, they approach things differently. Like I mentioned before, it's usually younger individuals that insist on texting and communicating electronically, right? Usually people who are over 40 answer the phone the first time, right? If you're under 40, especially if you're probably uh, 35 or younger, 30 or younger, you won't answer the phone, but they'll respond, "Who is this?" with the text. And then you tell them who you are. And hey, can you please share more? Like, no, we want to speak with you. And you don't get that a lot with people that are further in their careers and in other generations. Yeah.
Well, there's a great book by Letitia Baldridge. She trained Jackie Onassis about business manners, executive
Oh,
manners.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
Awesome.
it's a great book. And I think a lot of the times that the generations coming up, Generation Z, millennials, that's not necessarily required reading for them regarding conduct and so forth. In fact, I think, speaking of conduct in different generations, Meghan and Harry got in trouble for holding hands
Really? When was this?
a couple of days ago. So if we're
Yeah.
going back to unspoken protocols. So
And
anyways,
aren't they married though? Aren't you
they
allowed to
are,
hold your?
but they weren't supposed to hold hands so quickly after the passing of Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
these are those unspoken protocols and the expectations, the biases. Yeah.
Fascinating.
So moving on to the next question. So I know that you have a heart and a purpose and a mission around diversifying the workforce. So let me go to the next question, which has to do with the data showing that the more diverse the team, the more successful that team or business is in the marketplace. So how do you overcome it? I could call it groupthink, or if you've got a client and employer that says, well, we want people more like us.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that question, because I ultimately think that everyone is looking for diversity. They are looking for deep diversity. So when they say they want people that look like them, that's just the first layer. So do they want that person to look like them, think like them, and then repeat the same things that they say? No. I think they want people with like mindsets sometimes, but when you dig in and ask questions, ultimately what I've found is they're looking for people to even look at things in a different perspective and lens, or actually anticipate something a little bit different, or maybe a step further than they're anticipating, and perhaps even bring a different experience, even if it's one or two different experiences. Bring that back to the table so they can discuss it in anticipation of what their big picture is. So ultimately, I think everybody wants diversity. You just have, I tell my clients this all the time. When you say diversity, tell me what you mean by it. Define it for me. So asking the questions, understanding what they want, I think ultimately will get to understanding what they desire. And I believe that's diversity.
Okay. So I like that you spoke to like-mindedness, because sometimes a business owner can say, well, do I really want someone who's going to challenge me? And I think what you're saying back is, if it leads to profits, then diversity is good.
Yeah. So
Compared to yes men and yes women.
yes, so challenging is great. I like the word collaborate, right? So, and I think if someone trusts the other person and that feedback is shared with them, they're not threatened and they don't feel it as being challenged, right? So I think there's multi-levels and each situation is different, but yeah, challenging, collaborating, providing additional insight. One more thing, I think it's great for I think it's great for CEOs. I think it's great for leaders, and they all desire that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it really. Do you know a leader that doesn't want all the information he can get before he makes a decision?
Okay.
Right. So I see you, and I think you want all the information that you could get about me before we started this conversation, right? I see your processes. You want to gain as much knowledge, get shared data, and then make this experience as optimal for your interviewee as well as for your audience and for yourself. right? You knock it out the park. I think it's amazing. So when I think of other leaders, I think they want the same thing. And then once they have that, they're able to make a decision that they can stand by.
Yeah, I think I'm only collaborating with you on this question.
Yeah.
So I was once told by my business coach that my greatest strength was that other people underestimate me, but my greatest weakness is when I think that people think like me when they don't. So that's why I was checking in regarding executives. Do they really want more than yes men and yes women, like all of them? Because sometimes they say like the narcissists become, the narcissists rise to the top.
Yeah. Well, you bring something up, Angelina, because just because you're in a leadership position does not make you a leader. Right? So I've seen true leaders on different levels. I met a young lady, one of my friend's daughters, she's 12 years old, and she is a leader. She's pouring out leadership, right? She's a born leader. Not all leaders are born. You can develop and grow into a leader, but 100%, some people ascend to leadership roles and are put in those roles, but they're not necessarily leaders. And as a matter of fact, I'm short of calling them imposters, and whatever it may be, but I think we have to acknowledge that, depending on who the individual is in the context, you may have different experience.
Yes. Okay. Sorry to put you on the hot seat. I just thought I would.
No, you put me on the hot seat. I like the hot seat.
Just
Remember, I'm from Haiti. So one thing I don't like are cold seats. I prefer hot seats.
Okay, good. And I appreciate your sense of humor. And I guess you can, you've probably gotten to a place at 53 that you can read the landscape. And if you're, let's say, dealing with a narcissistic leader, which is, some people have said that's the plight of the 21st century, that if they say, Ivan, we just want you to bring us someone that's going to make us look good, then that's kind of well, how do you sell that?
Well, I'd like to think everybody we send is going to make our clients look good, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's one of the things we strive for.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, well, I'll take you off the hot seat now. So what made you choose this work, and what makes you love this work?
Well, quite frankly, I did not choose this work. This work chose me. And it was just by chance. I had a friend who was she was in transition, and at the same time I was looking for my next move. I had recently attained my MBA and was trying to figure out what I was doing next. And she said to me, "You know what? I think you'd be great at CareerBuilder." And I'm like, "Yeah, tell me more about it," because CareerBuilder was brand new. And the whole idea of job postings, I had no idea about. So she started explaining it to me, and I'm like, you know what, this technology thing, I think it's got some staying power. I think it's probably a good idea for me to get into some type of technology gig. And I said, it's just too bad. I don't know anybody there, and they probably don't have a role for me. And she says to me, "Oh, they absolutely have a role, because I'm leaving there to go somewhere else, and I can refer you to the manager." And within like 3 weeks, I was working there, and it was a fabulous, fascinating time. Lots of things were happening and changing in the world, in corporate America. And I like to think of myself as a people person, engaging people, talking, shaking hands. And, I mentioned my MBA as well. It just fascinating to me, the companies that I've read about. I've been in those companies. I've been in their boardrooms. I've talked to them about, their plans, their growth. Oh, it explodes my mind. So I've really been lucky, seeing conversations in Wall Street Journal that I was in the room with like 5 other people. My name wasn't mentioned, but I know like that was me. see these big, huge conventions and association meetings, which I'm eager to get back to. And yeah, it's just been fun. It doesn't feel like work all the time, even though I'm up late, but really enjoy what I'm doing.
Yeah. So tell me what you think your purpose is, as this is a legacy podcast.
Wow. I've been asked that a lot this past 6-7 months. So I will tell you, at the moment, I'm really embracing my legacy to help make the world a better place as much as I can, even if it's a little bit. I'm lucky to have two amazing parents that really were great examples to their children. My mom's not here with us anymore, but I really appreciate that. And I think about them a lot and how I can improve the world, make the world a better place. And in my work, I want to the best of my ability, and help enhance and improve others, whether it be with a better job, elevating them and coaching them in situations, so that enhancement enrich them in ways that maybe they could not have, or connect them with people. So really the enhancing and improving their position.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I know in previous podcasts you mentioned that a part of your purpose is being able to create those opportunities if they don't have the $100,000 to have that, to pay for that tuition, or to open up that door,
Yeah.
that workshop that could teach the skills that they can't take 2 weeks off, and
Right.
mentors or sponsors. And yeah.
Yeah, it's I became aware a long time ago that people have the ability to make others' lives and plights better, right? Maybe even more than they can for themselves, but we all have that power. So it's been great to do, and it always it never gets old.
Yes, that's beautiful. What would you say are any of your top 3 values or principles that you get to honor with the work that you're doing today, as well as, I could say, a legacy that you're designing because of your awareness?
Yeah. So first and foremost, again, improving others' lives, right? And by improving others' lives, that synergy, that karma, the universe, I'm improving the lives of my family and kids and my wife, those around me, and really uplifting the community to the best that I can. I mean, whether it's education, whether it's quality of life, you know, getting rid of poverty. We live here in Cincinnati, and I sit on a board for Our Daily Bread, which is the largest soup kitchen in the tri-state here. And gosh, they just being part of that organization really shows me every day how lucky I am to be around people who do some tremendous things, and it really gives me energy to do that.
That's lovely. And I know before we spoke on today's podcast, we talked about the Cincinnati Zoo and the Columbus Zoo and what it's
Yes,
like
yes.
in Ohio, because I'd lived there for a couple of years, for a moment, because I had a military
Yeah,
father. Yes.
yeah. So my daughter, that Cincinnati Zoo is one of her favorite places in the whole world. And yeah, great places. If no one's ever been there, they should definitely visit. It's never a bad time.
Yeah, well, it's a wonderful family environment also. Yes.
Yeah,
Any lasting thoughts? And then I'm going to read my closing paragraph.
yeah. Angelina, I appreciate your conversation, and kind of helping me share a little bit of my legacy. I think it's great that we have the power to create our legacy. It's not just for the affluent. It's not just for those with powers and in high towers. We all have a legacy that we can provide and build for ourselves and others.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think one of the things you also mentioned is today's employee and candidate also has more of a voice than they did maybe a decade ago. So it's interesting how those dynamics are changing, because back so many decades ago, it was kind of an asymmetrical relationship.
Yeah, well, yeah, candidates are definitely in the driver's seat right now,
Yeah,
right? So for however long that lasts, they're in the driver's seat. So if there's anyone getting ready to enter the marketplace as a candidate, keep that in mind, but don't overthink things. I think I think if I can give a little bit of a tip and some coaching advice in general, that sometimes candidates are overthinking things too much because they're not used to being in the driver's seat. And little things that make them react a way that they probably is not to their best end result. So just keep that in mind.
yeah. Well, I think sometimes candidates take it so personally when the rejection comes.
Well, yeah, it's it's a busy world. There's understaffing going on everywhere, and you would not believe sometimes candidates just go off the deep end because it takes a few days for companies to call them back, or maybe they that they were asked to wear a blazer and they didn't want to wear a blazer. You like how I got that in?
Yes.
But yeah, I think sometimes you just I think if candidates in general, and this goes all the way to the offer letter too. If it's not an offer that is suitable for you, before you say no, ask if there's any room to make changes or if you can increase the salary. Don't take it as a slap in the face or that they really don't want you. That's one example. Another example is if a lot of times they're doing a lot of first interviews on screen virtually, and other times they want to see you in person. So I have candidates that are offended that they want to do a virtual interview, and then I have candidates that are offended that they want them to meet in person, right? And they start creating these thoughts and ideas behind it. Just don't overthink things too much. Everyone is doing the best that they can, and there's different forces at play. But the great thing is that you are in the driver's seat. So try to take the opportunity to the end and be able to assess and evaluate accordingly at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just share one more thing before I read my closing paragraph. One of the things we chatted about before is there's a number of affluent families, and in order to execute their legacy, they need the talent. But the hardest part is finding trusted individuals more than just qualified individuals. And again, it's like, well, how do you find that person that you feel like if you're not watching them, they can just take the ball, run with it, be trustworthy, have your back, and get it in on time, whatever that project or that
Yeah.
goal is.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that go into that, because companies or affluent families or whatever, their initial trust and openness is easier when someone is referred to them or there's a connection to that person, right? So companies that have figured this out have very robust referral programs within their companies. And those individuals, those affluent individuals, if they have a friend who recommends somebody, they jump on it all the time. You see that. As a matter of fact, oftentimes they will hire somebody on site or shortly after on site, right? First interview. So I think that human nature is there and can help overcome a lot of the apprehension. I will also say could be a cultural thing as well. So a company that I worked with before, it was very well known that great place to work, but if you came in an interview with dusty or non-polished shoes, they wouldn't hire you. Right. So some people who are listening to this may know the company that I'm speaking of, but it's a pretty well-known company.
Is it GE?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay,
GE.
okay.
And if it was, I wouldn't tell you anyway.
Oh, okay, okay.
I wouldn't tell you anyway, but it's not GE. But on the other side to that too is working with affluent families and individuals. When someone off the street or someone has expressed interest through the candidate pipeline, they look for things that are familiar to them that they can connect and start building that trust on. So that says to me that even on an individual level, that's culture, right? You're looking to see if that person is going to fit in to your culture so that you can begin the trust process, right? You have somebody walk in and see if their shoes are polished and shiny, so you can trust that they're going to fit in, and you can trust that they're going to make your company better. So I think it all is all connected.
Yeah. Okay. Very nice. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Ivan, very much for speaking into your knowledge, your wisdom, what you've learned in real life, and walking the floor and what you do and what you've seen in the boardrooms as well as with the various company cultures. So thank you so much for just being here and being a voice as well as a positive role model. I'm just going to read my closing paragraph.
Yeah.
So in closing, I'm Angelina Carlton, the hostess of the Design Your Legacy podcast, as well as the founder to Legacy Planning, a boutique advisory firm based out of Beverly Hills, California, but international in those I coach. I hope to dive deep into subjects that can help a person define, develop, and execute their legacy, and continue to scour the landscape for those who can be great resources to every dimension of your legacy. For many listeners, there can never be enough education and preparation in the moat or moat around your castle. Whether you find yourself with new wealth or generational wealth, may the content on this channel be an anchor in any storms ahead. We do our best to provide original content for your intellectual and emotional curiosity. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please remember to rate and review. And thank you, Ivan, for being an excellent guest speaker and also for speaking into your legacy.
My pleasure. Anytime, Angelina.